This is WBCR News.
Hello.
Hello.
So today is a special episode of WBCR News. We have a special guest here, Loren, who is the producer and director of a very special film called 96 Pounds of Dynamite, which covers the story of Chad McDaniel, who is also referred to as Shorty, and his journey to going to a pool tournament. Do you want to go a little bit more in depth about the film so that you
Sh-
can do it from your perspective?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good introduction. So, the film is about Chad McDaniel. His nickname is Shorty, which becomes obvious when you see him. And it's a nickname he got when he was in college, and it's stuck, and he's very proud of it. Chad is very short. He's about 2 feet 8 inches tall. He was born with a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta or brittle bone disease. And because of that, he's very short in stature. And he's a very accomplished amateur pool player and quite well known in the amateur pool world. And for the person who meets Chad for the first time, you would ask yourself the question, how in the heck is this guy able to play pool? And that's kind of what went through my mind when I first saw him. I am a pool player, and we met at a pool hall. And I was just shocked when I watched him play another person, able-bodied player, and he really wiped the floor with his opponent. And that got me going. And I started talking with him and learned all about his life and his backstory. And I just felt it was just very compelling and worthy of a film so that people could learn about Chad and maybe gain some inspiration from him.
Yes, and you definitely were able to portray all the ins and outs of his story perfectly. I wanted to know, what was your process like when you saw him when he was playing pool, but what was like your process after you started thinking and you were like, okay, this is gonna be a film. What was like the little steps that you were thinking when going through it, like graphics? Ooh, what's this that I could like show and really demonstrate his story well?
So I didn't really know anything about him at that point in time when I first saw him. I just knew he was talented at a pool table, and you know, despite his short stature, was able to play the game really well. But I didn't really know much else about him. It turned out that we had a mutual friend, and that friend put me in touch with Chad. I sat down with Chad and Allison, his wife, for a couple of hours at their home, and learned all about, as I said, his backstory, which is really quite interesting. And the idea behind the film was to follow him in the months leading up to this tournament in Las Vegas. And as it turned out, some pretty dramatic events take place in his life during that period of time. We didn't know, obviously, didn't know that would happen. So I felt we had a decent film just with his history, but then we had these events that occurred, and then we have the tournament. So there was a lot of material to work with, and throughout the film, throughout the filming process, this I knew would be what I call a fly on the wall film. So it's partly historical, right? Because we're looking back on his life, but it's also a lot of events that are unfolding in front of us, right? So we are there, we have cameras around him to capture these things as they're happening. And that to me is the style of project I prefer. That's where I kind of gravitate toward. I kind of like the unknown.
Yeah.
I'm not as excited about going in and doing projects that are completely historical, where before you shoot a frame of video, you know what the end result is going to be. Not as
Yeah.
exciting to me. So
No, yeah, I definitely agree.
this had elements of both.
And I definitely agree. So you started with the clip with the interview with him and Allison, his wife. Is that how you started with the film? Like, and that's how you like originally were like, oh, okay, we're gonna go dive a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, and it was an off-camera interview. It was basically a get to know you session, and but I learned his whole backstory, and knew at that point we had something.
Yeah.
And then so when we started filming, probably one of the first things we did was what we would call a foundational interview, where you sit down for a good length of time in front of the cameras and you're getting everything you can get. You want to, and that's sort of the foundation. And you see that clips from that interview throughout the film.
Yes.
In addition to the sound we capture, while we're out in the field doing other stuff. But that's sort of the foundational interview, and then you build from there.
I totally love that. There was a scene in the film that I really really liked, which is why I was mentioning him and Allison, because I really liked how you guys were able to just do like a day in the life, how they went like on the I-95, like they were using their wheelchairs to go outside and like do activities. And from a perspective like me, I love seeing and diving deep into who the subject is and like who the person is, and I really appreciated that. How was it when you were making your team, like the film team? Because you were the director and the producer, but it also takes like a full team. So how is that dynamic, and like how did you plan that out?
So it's kind of interesting. I tapped into what we call the Atlanta Mafia. So I'm not based in Atlanta, but I have a lot of connections to Atlanta. I used the company my other company that I co-founded, we started in Atlanta. My business partner lives in Atlanta. Both of my kids well, my son goes to school in Atlanta, about to graduate. My daughter works in Atlanta. I have so many
Oh,
connections to Atlanta.
Atlanta.
And there's a very strong production community there that I'm familiar with and I've worked with before on other projects. So I kind of tapped into into that universe to bring in most of the team. So our editor, Kim O'Neill, our cinematographer, Dwayne Codrington, my co-director, Ed Coughlin, they're all in Atlanta. They all had previously worked on projects together. So I think I started with Kim. Yeah, I think I started with Kim, and then she introduced me to Dwayne and Ed, and it kind of grew from there. And then both our colorist and graphics developer, he's based in Atlanta. I'd worked with him on other projects. Our sound designers in Atlanta, so it's definitely the Atlanta Mafia, as we call it. And that's most of my team is based there. I'm in Florida, but they're mainly in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. That's really, really cool though, because you guys were still able to work like cohesively and like just
Mhm.
get the story done very, very well. So
And
that's
I had
so
to shoot
amazing.
some of it because of that distance. When things happen, like at the last moment, things you're not planning, like some of the elements of the film. I get a text from Chad or a call, hey, this is going on, and I had to react pretty quickly. So I would use gear that I have here, and I would just go and do the shoot because there's no time to get Dwayne, fly in and handle
Mhm.
it. So you have to bring in other people sometimes or do it yourself when your crew is not based locally.
Yeah, I was gonna definitely ask about that. So I did a little bit of research on you, and I was gonna ask, like, with your background in journalism, were you able to use the techniques that you learned through being a journalist in this film, and like, how did that work for you? Because I know for me with journalism, we always just have to work fast pace and like roll with the punches. So how was that when you were filming, basically with what you just said?
Yeah, I think my background as a journalist definitely helps. I mean, documentary filmmaking and journalism are close cousins. I wouldn't say they're not synonymous because there are plenty of documentaries that are advocacy driven, where they take a very specific point of view, almost like a column or an opinion piece. And that's not the world I come from. I come from journalism where you're presenting both sides and so on. This film doesn't have that so much. It's not really that kind of film. It's more of a character study. Um, but I think that the skills, learning how to think on your feet, adapt to the situation, um, pivot when that's necessary. Those are all things that I think are ingrained in you when you are a practicing journalist, because you go where the story takes you. Often journalists are working in present day. They're not, they might be tapping into historical knowledge for context purposes, but they are reporting on something as it's unfolding in front of them. And in this, it's similar to uh, this style of documentary where you are reporting, not really reporting, but you are covering, you are shooting elements as they are happening. You don't know how they're going to end. And I think training in journalism prepares you for that.
I also think that we were able to feel that through watching the film. Like we were able to feel all these different types of emotions and like
Yeah.
it was a perfect blend and a mixture of emotions. How would you say like you were able to see his community? Like we were able to see different types of people that Chad has been able to affect just with his personality because I was like, oh, I want to hang out with Chad. Like I want to go and like learn how to do pool and maybe he could teach me something. Were you able to feel that, like meeting him from the first time that you ever met him, where you're like, "Ooh, like this is a
Yeah,
pretty cool dude."
what you see on camera is what you get in person. I think he's like a magnet. I mean, he really draws people to him. He and I become close friends through this process, and he has friends everywhere. I mean, Chad has, as his mother says in the film, he has friends on top of friends.
Yes.
I think people are initially curious, um, and because he's so open and welcoming and friendly and quick with a smile and a joke, it disarms people who might be a little apprehensive about approaching him. And people just, they just love him. I mean, the most common thing I hear after people who don't know him see the film, so at festivals that we've screened at and other places, is I want to go have a beer with him. Like that's the most common statement I hear from people who don't know him but have been able to see the film. And it's I know when we started the project and we were shooting with him, I would say repeatedly to the crew, people are going to love this guy. Like he just comes right through the camera lens and grabs you by the throat, and people are going to love him. Um, and I think that's true.
Yeah, it definitely is. I feel like I said when I first started watching it, I was like, this is really interesting, and I need to go and do some pool. Like I need to play some pool, um, for sure. And I really appreciate you mentioned a little bit earlier about a scene, and I don't want to give too much spoilers. You guys have to watch it, but um we get a little bit the more vulnerable side of Chad. Like we get the vulnerable side of feeling like sadness and all of those emotions. How would you say that you were able to capture that? Because there were times where it just out of respect of him, like there was no recording or like video film, but how was your process in thinking about how can we portray this emotion without being too invading of privacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. With a project like this, where you are focusing on a single person or a couple of people, and you're going to be in their life. I think it's the responsibility of the filmmaker to set the stage very early on. So when we met at their house before we shot a frame of film or video, I said to them, look, this is going to be invasive. There's no way around it. I'm not going to sugarcoat this and say, well, I'm just going to be like a fly on the wall. You won't notice me around. That's just not my approach. And I told them, for this film to work, you are going to have to open up your life. Yes, there are going to be times when we won't film, but we have to be able to capture your life as it unfolds over the next several months, no matter what happens. These could be wonderful things in your life. You might have not so wonderful things that happen, but we need to be present for those. Um, and I said, if you don't want to do it, I completely understand. This is not an easy thing to say yes to. So if you don't want to do it, I get it. We're better off understanding that now. Um, and so I think it's a combination of me being transparent about that, but then also just the way that they are. They're very open people, as you can see in the film. He didn't hesitate for 1 second. They were all in from the beginning. That doesn't always happen, right? So it's a combination, I think, of me being transparent, but also just the way that they are. Somebody else might have said, no, it's okay. In that case, it's not for me, or I want to be able to have control over what you include and those sorts of things. And in that case, it just, it won't work. But um,
Do Do you think
everything.
that's what made it like flourish so much? Because it was just like a good partnership of, okay, like this is the project where we're going into it strong and just being so real and raw and authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a reluctant subject, and they stay reluctant throughout the project, it's going to suffer. The project will suffer. It'll be noticeable on the screen. You really, they need to buy into it. But that requires the filmmaker to be very honest from the beginning. If they have any intentions on how they plan to pursue the film, if they just need to be very, very honest up front. And you
Yeah.
can't be afraid of your subject saying, you know what, it's not for me. You're better off that happening at the front end than being in the middle of the project and the subject bailing on you, or feeling like they've been betrayed. So, that's why I follow the path that I do now. And I learned that very on back in school. I went to Syracuse. That's where I graduated from, the Newhouse School.
Yes.
And I remember a project very early on, a very sensitive project. I was in a documentary class, and it was a project that related to a very well-known criminal case in Syracuse that happened basically just before, I think before I started there, maybe right after I started as a freshman. But it was very raw, and I was able to get someone who was very involved in that story to agree to go on camera with me. And I remember sitting down with that person and his mother. He was an adult, he wasn't a child. But I was sitting down at a restaurant with his mother, the two of them, and she wanted me to commit to doing things a certain way or portraying her son a certain way. So I just can't do that. As much as I want to do this story, I can't do that. She also wanted to buy my lunch, which is a no-no with journalism. You can't have your subjects paying for things for you, and because the obvious reason you don't want to
Yeah.
feel beholden to them in any way. And I had to turn her down and say, look, I'll pay. I can pay for my own meal, thank you. And they ended up letting me. And I did the story, and I just so very early on, that's the approach that I've always taken, and I think it's a good way to operate, even if it means you don't get the story.
Yeah. And with this film, you were able to follow him like through, like I said, like every emotion. Were there any clips that you felt like, oh, maybe I should have added that, or you're completely satisfied, or will we get a blooper scenes, or like what didn't make the cut?
I'm starting to put for the promotion of the film on social media. I just like this week started putting up bloopers and kind of fun stuff. And I'm terrible with social media, and I don't have a social media person. So all that stuff I'm doing. But uh, we thought about I wanted to do originally a blooper reel during the credits, which is, not an uncommon thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't have there were so many clips we ended up using in the film. I didn't have enough of that stuff to put at the end. I wanted it all to be upbeat and positive at the end. I didn't want, we had, I wouldn't call them bloopers, but outtakes that, more or a little sadder, and I didn't want to use those in the credits.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to use some of that stuff. We've been using some of that stuff online. I'll continue to do that.
That's good. That's very good. Social media promotion is amazing. So,
Yeah.
it's good that you're starting. It's
Yeah.
amazing that you're starting. I definitely think that social media will love Chad. I personally will be like, yes, guys, go ahead. But, but yeah, how do you feel about this like being now in film festivals and it's going around. People are now being able to see your film and it'll be open. Like your project, your child is now out there.
Yeah,
How does it feel?
it, it feels great because it's been a long time coming. We finished the film in early 25, um, and we were rejected by 42 festivals in a row, which I just I never expected that. We had, including rejections from several top tier festivals that contacted us and said, "Hey, you were really close. We're sorry we couldn't fit you in." And one of them was Tribeca,
Hmm.
up where you are, and they sent a nice personal note saying, we were arguing about your film until the final round, and we just couldn't find a home for it, but we really liked the film. And so I would be lying if I said I wasn't sort of down after going through that for several months. But then all of a sudden, bam, things changed. We had our world premiere at a very respected big festival in California, CineQuest, out in Silicon Valley. We had two screenings out there. Then we traveled around to have done some others. We won in Vero Beach, Florida. We won Audience Choice for Best Documentary. We played at Sarasota. We're going to be in New York
Yep.
at Real Abilities. Hopefully, some folks listening to this will be able to attend, but we'll be at Real Abilities on the 29th. We have a screen. Wait,
The
no, sorry, the
28th, yeah.
28th and 29th. We have screenings, which you can learn about on their website, Real Abilities New York. Um, and then we come home for our final screening in St. Petersburg, Florida, at Sunscreen, which is a really great festival. And then we'll be live on Amazon and Apple starting May 11th. So starting
Congratulations.
May 11th, you'll be able to see the film. So
So
yeah, it's
how does
been a
it
long.
feel
It
to get this
feels
recognition? Like you won awards, you're gonna be at festivals. I know that it's like I understand when it's like in the beginning where it's like, oh, like I can't get it. And then
right.
now you're getting it. So like does it feel like you're like feeling satisfied, like your inner child is screaming for
Yeah,
joy?
absolutely. I've been swamped. I've got so much going on, not just with the film, but the other parts of my life that keep me busy. And my wife says, "Well, this is what you wanted, so you know." But I know I feel great. It's wonderful. I'm really happy for Chad. I mean, I think he was at some point wondering if this film was ever going to see the light of day. Um,
Will he
so
be at the festivals?
he's been at yeah, he's been at let's see, he went to Vero. He was supposed to be at Sarasota with me, but he was sick, so he didn't go. He will be in New York.
I was
So
supposed to
again,
say, are we gonna get
another.
him in New York?
Yeah, he'll be in New York with me. We're traveling together. It'll be his first time in Manhattan or in New York at all, any part of New York. And so I'm really excited. I've been to New York many, many times in my life, but it's exciting he and I are basically the same age. It's like, you know,
You guys are gonna be able to
it's like the first time
bond.
I showed my kids to New when my wife and I went with our kids to New York, and seeing it through their eyes. So it's kind of neat. I always love doing that. So to see New York through Chad's eyes will be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's really looking forward to it. He's excited to make that trip. So
That's amazing. I have
yeah,
one more question about the
sure.
film.
Uh-huh.
The music. As an audio person, I love music. It helps me feel like, what is the scene? Like, what's going on? What was your like decisions and processes with that part of thinking about, ooh, this is really like helping me feel what he is saying in that moment or what his mom is saying or what his wife is saying. How is that breakdown for you guys as
Well,
a team?
well, I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, music in any film is important, whether it's narrative or documentary, it's important. And I think especially when there are a lot of changes in mood. So this film, we go through a lot of changes in mood, a lot of ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And I think the music is even more important than the signal that change for the audience as each scene is starting. And this music was not composed for the film. We used a library, a very, very good library from Universal Production Music that we licensed. And I give a lot of the credit to my editor, Kim O'Neill. She's great with, not every editor is great with music and sound effects, and she's really strong with that stuff. And then, so she picked a lot of the cuts, and then our sound designer, Matt Copeland, who's just, has a really great ear and is terrific with audio. He made all the sound effects pop, brought in new effects and cleaned up the sound, our wild sound. So uh, really, they made a great team. They were a great combo there, and I give all the credit to the two of them for that. And the library was huge. Composing music for this film, I think would have been a real challenge and probably would have busted the budget just because there's a lot of different pacing in this film. Um, it goes through what's the word in music? I forget the term that I'm. It's not coming to me. I'm not a musician, but there's a term in music talking about changes like that within a song, time signature changes,
Mhm.
and it's kind of very similar to that with this film. And so I think composing music probably would have been, I never even really considered it. Um,
Yeah.
but for this project, I didn't think it was the right approach. So I'm happy with the way it turned out. And
No, yeah.
the library was it's a fantastic library. And we were very happy with it.
It was very good. I like I said, I'm an audio person, so I'm like, ooh, what's this? And I'm also a visual, so that's why I was like asking about the graphics as well a little bit earlier because when we went through his disability, and we were able to see like this is the different types, like this is
Mhm.
the first one, like that really helped show like the severity and how special and unique he is and like how he's able to persevere through this and just show resilience is amazing. Do you think that that's a common theme that you were trying to show through this film? Like when you first came through, you were like, is this is a theme that I'm going for? Or like you said, you're like a roll with the punches, or like not even like roll with the punches, but going through it as it comes. When you were editing or after at the end, were you like, this is a theme or a film about resilience?
Yeah, when I went into it, I didn't have any themes in my head. When I approached the film, it was I find this guy really interesting, likable, funny, and I think audiences will be attracted to him and feel good when they finish watching this film. They'll take something away from it. As we started cutting the film, I would say yes. That I started thinking about the themes. What do we, now we have all this footage, what is it we want to focus on as we go throughout his journey? And I think that there's the resilience and the attitude, the can-do attitude. But there's also the other big theme in this film is the importance of parenting and the importance of strong parenting. That was not something that I even considered when we started the project, but as we worked our way through it and we shot with Chad and his mom, and you start to see the importance of that relationship in Chad's life. And I can appreciate that because I had a very strong mother figure growing up. My mom raised me by herself for 9 years. And so I don't know if I would be where I am or be the person I am today without her very strong presence in my life. So he and I have that in common, and I feel that that should be, and I hope it is something people recognize when they
Yeah.
finish watching the film. And fortunately, I've heard that comment from more than a few people now who were new to the project, had seen the film for the first time, and they picked up on that. So I'm hoping that's something that most people pick up on.
No, yeah, there are definitely clear scenes where it's just like this is how he became who he is today, and it's because
Mhm.
of his mom. And I think you were able to show that dynamic between them perfectly in multiple scenes of the film. So I think it was portrayed very, very well of like parenting and how the way that you raise your child is the way that they shall go. So I really think that this was good and amazing. And I'm so excited for everybody to see it. Yeah.
Great.
So you guys can all watch 96 Pounds of Dynamite. It will be screening at Real Abilities Film Festival at FIT on April 28th, which is next week, Tuesday, and then at the Merlene Meyerson Jewish Community Center of Manhattan on April 29th. And then after May 11th, it'll be everywhere. Well,
That's right.
Amazon and Apple. So I'm so excited for you guys to watch the film. Do you have anything else that you would like to say, Lauren?
Oh, I guess all the obligatory social mentions, right? So
Yes.
find us on Facebook, 96 Pounds of Dynamite, also on Instagram, and we just started TikTok, which is so far not catching on. So if you want to help an old guy on TikTok, my daughter says I need the help of younger folks for TikTok. So you can look us up, 96 Pounds of Dynamite on TikTok.
Yes. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of WBCR News. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.